Airbnb filed for its IPO on August 19th, 2020. So when are they going to be listed on the actual stock market? People thought they were going to be on there by the end of August, but it's October and there's still no Airbnb stock on the market. Now they are considering the going public in December, which I think is good news considering the election happens in November. Hopefully that goes well. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jacob Fisher, and today we're talking about the Airbnb IPO and whether or not you should invest in the company post-IPO, because unless you are an angel investor, I don't think you're investing in them before the IPO. I'm also not a financial advisor, so let's take this video for entertainment purposes only. Tap that like button and get into it. Let's first talk about how Airbnb handled the whole pandemic, considering they did lose about 67% in revenue and had to lay off 20% of their workforce. The thing with Airbnb, though, is that they don't have any assets themselves, really, except for the apartment buildings that they're trying to build. A hotel has a property and rooms and things to take care of and many more employees to ensure each guest has a great time during their stay. Airbnb has none of that, which has allowed them to recover a little bit better than hotels after people started traveling a bit more then. In fact, a lot of people have gravitated towards Airbnbs and hotels because it allows them to stay excluded from people generally, and they can keep to themselves, quarantine if they wanted to, or just explore wherever kind of house they booked. Most people are seeing Airbnb as a safer alternative to hotels, but of course Airbnb doesn't have certain amenities and loyalty programs that hotels have. They have partnered with companies where you can earn Delta Sky miles for staying in Airbnb. So that's neat, but they don't have a program themselves. How much is Airbnb worth, though? Now that is a rather tough question to answer, because back earlier this year it was worth about $38 billion, but now it's only worth about $18 billion. Of course, companies' value will change depending on how much revenue they bring in and the potential growth that they have in the future, and this is where Airbnb, at least I think, will excel. They do have a ton of potential to grow in the future if people are going to continue booking Airbnbs, but they might run into some struggles with short-term rental restrictions in some states and counties and cities. For example, if you want to run short-term rentals in some cities, we'll take Dillon and Breckenridge, Colorado, for example. You need to apply for a short-term rental license so that you can do that as the person who's renting out your house. It's generally only like $50 and not too much of an issue, but counties can decide if they want to restrict short-term rentals, which would pretty much take down Airbnb in that specific area, especially if they limited renting to like 2 days, because nobody would book it for the weekend. They've had to book it for even longer. Some people just don't like Airbnb because it could bring in people who are trying to party and play loud music. Of course, again, that's not the case with every single Airbnb occupant out there, but occasionally it happens. There's a great technical overview of Airbnb that I'll list down below. It includes things like listings, revenue, and just a slew of other things. I can go over the details in this pretty quickly though, so you can see kind of where I'm coming from. The number of active listings is increasing, which is certainly good for the company. It's currently sitting around 5.8 million listings all over the world. Next, we have the number of nights booked, which decreased because of, well, but they've rebounded pretty heavily after that. Same with revenue increasing so much, but that makes sense. With listings booked, they will have increasing revenue because more people are booking, more revenue. Makes sense. Seems like they recovered pretty well, but hopefully they will continue back up into that growth phase that they were in before, hopefully starting around sometime next summer. I have a feeling people are going to get eager to get out traveling and just seeing more by next summer. Of course, that is contingent on a vaccine, but I still think people want to be exploring. I don't think people want to be inside their homes for the rest of their lives. Well, some people might, but Let's get into some of the competitors that they have around. There are obvious ones like hotel chains, Marriott and Hilton, but they don't compete as directly with them as some short-term rental companies like VRBO and Booking.com, which is owned by Expedia, a much larger company than Airbnb has, with much more money behind it. They might have the funds, but do they have the traction to beat out some of the market share currently owned by Airbnb? That's a pretty difficult question to answer, and I don't think they will at least initially take out much of the market share that Airbnb has. Let's take, for example, you're talking with your friends about where you want to go vacationing. Most of the time, you either go, are we going to book a hotel or are we going to book an Airbnb? No one's like, oh, I want to go check out VRBO and book whatever listing that they have. Airbnb is becoming more of a household name. However, the ads that I get targeted for on Facebook are all about VRBO, so they've definitely spent a lot on their ad campaigns recently, which, could potentially help them in the future. You might even see an ad for VRBO on this video, but not yet because I'm not monetized. You could subscribe and help me out though. Lastly, I wanted to mention some of these scams that Airbnb has faced in the recent years. They have rectified some of them, but of course the scams might come back and there might be new ones that pop up too. The biggest scam is that people will book a listing, the person says it's not ready or encountered some damage, but they have this other place that is amazing that you should stay at while they fix the leak and then you can go back to the other place. Turns out that new place that they offered is awful, run down, and sometimes other people live there. While Airbnb might have been able to get the money back, maybe they removed the listings, it's hard to use the platform again after you've encountered something like that. Now, it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen occasionally, so you just need to be aware when you are booking on Airbnb when compared to like Marriott, for example. You pretty much should just always talk to the people you're renting from in the actual app and only make payments through there. Don't go through some third party or Venmo or whatever you want to do. I'll list the 2 articles down below if you wanted to check them out. So what's the verdict? Should you invest in Airbnb after the IPO? I think you should. IPO day might be a bit hectic, so I would say try to go half in your position or a third, but definitely not the full position size that you want in Airbnb. I'm thinking they could potentially spike anywhere from 20 to 100% the day of the IPO, just from people trying to get in. If you go along with my strategy of investing over time and dollar cost averaging, then I think you could develop a pretty good position in Airbnb over a few months or weeks even. That's my plan at least. I have no idea if they will spike and continue climbing after the IPO, but with dollar cost averaging, you don't really have to worry about getting in at the lows or even buying at the highs or selling at the highs. You just get in over time and again, sell over time too. Let me know your thoughts on the Airbnb IPO down below. And if you would invest in them, I upload videos on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on travel and finance. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, make sure you hit that little subscribe button down there. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.